What's up, everybody? Will Schools on here. Welcome back to my channel. As today, I am now going to make my first full video of, I guess you could say, my new sports channel type thing. Even though it used to be my gaming channel, for those that don't know and haven't been keeping track over the past month or so. And now I'm finally making my first video, and that is predicting all of the FBS conference predictions. I've done the American, I think the ACC, but I don't think I went anything past that. So it's time to actually take a look at all of it and made it all make sense. So let's go get right into this. And the first one we're starting out is the independents. There's only two of them, UConn and Notre Dame. They're technically not a conference, but I figure I'll throw them both in here anyway. And they both should have a pretty solid year, in my opinion. Notre Dame going 12-0. They're going to have major comeback this year, and they're going to beat quite a bit of top guys. I'm pretty sure they go up against the Ducks. I think Ohio State. They have quite a bit of big names that they go up against. I think Notre Dame takes them all down. UConn, they have a pretty kind of a rough schedule a little bit, but I think they improved quite a bit. Usually they're known for basketball and not football, but their football program has been pretty good. I have a lot of hope for UConn, so hopefully they can actually have a really good season. I see, of course, both of them make it to the bowl game, and I see Notre Dame probably make it to the playoffs. Finally, time for our first conference, being the American Athletic Conference, or as everybody knows, as the American or the AAC. They have 14 teams, and I've done this quite a few weeks ago, probably a couple months ago, I'd say. So if you don't remember, here it is. I think I was a little bit too harsh on Tulane, especially having them rank 8, but Charlotte, they're going to go 2-10. They're going to be having 0 wins under their conference record. Which I think that makes sense. Rice is going to do that good. I don't like Florida Atlantic. Well, UAB, everybody says they're bad. I think they're pretty bad myself. Temple, I don't think they're going to do the greatest. I think I might have been a little bit too harsh on North Texas and Tulane. They're actually probably one of my favorite teams behind Central Michigan and U of M. These two are probably on top of one of my favorite teams. I think I was a little bit harsh on them, so maybe they should have gotten boosted up. So now time for the upper half. I have Tulsa being ranked 7, going 6-6 and 4-4. They should do quite a bit better this year, but maybe I could throw in Tulane in there instead. But in my opinion, Tulane or North Texas cannot beat the next teams. Certain Army. I think they're going to go 8-4. They're going to have a pretty rough conference record schedule. They're going to go 4-4. I actually thought that they went up against Notre Dame, but maybe I'm wrong on that. East Carolina should have a major upgrade year. Memphis, despite having a new head coach, this team is really great. I think Memphis will do pretty good. UTSA, everybody thinks they're going to do good. I think they're going to do pretty good. Finally got South Florida and Navy. These two teams are going to do extremely well this year, and even a chance for one or both of them to make it to the playoffs. I think somebody in the American Conference will make it to the playoffs this year. I don't see a lot of people thinking Navy as the top team in the American. I personally think they will. Their time is going to come real soon here. Next, it's time for the Atlantic Coast Conference, or the ACC. And here's the bottom half. Duke, they won the conference championship last year. This year is not going to be the case. So many teams are going to do so much better this year, and Duke is not going to be one of them. The ACC was just so bad last year. I mean, I don't know how Duke even managed to be the top team and win the conference, but anything happens. Boston College, North Carolina, Wake Forest, Stanford, they aren't going to do that good. Many people have hope for Virginia Tech. I don't. Cal, I don't think they're going to do that great. NC State either. I always liked Florida State. I always thought they're going to do very good in many, many years. For like the past couple years, I thought Florida State was going to do good, and they haven't. I don't have much hope for Florida State this year. They're going to be towards the bottom half. They're going 6-6 and 4-4 for their overall record. Finally, here's the upper half. I think Syracuse is going to have a bounce back year. They're going to go 7-5. I have quite a bit of hope for them. Georgia Tech, they're going to decline a little bit. Louisville, and I think they're going to do pretty good. Virginia, I think they were in the conference finals last year. Maybe I'm wrong. I know Miami, Florida wasn't, and they still made it to the playoffs. And Miami, Florida, SMU, number the 2 top teams in this conference. I have a ton of hope for them. Both of them going undefeated. Pittsburgh and Clemson, they're going to do really good. Clemson having that bounce back year. I think they're going to be pretty dominant once again. Now it's time for the Big Ten Conference. They have 18 teams, the most out of any conference. And here we go with the lower half. Purdue, you always got to have them on the bottom. They have not been successful. They're probably one of the worst teams in the Power Conference and probably one of the worst, period, in my opinion. Minnesota's not going to do much better. Rutgers, they're not going to do any good. Michigan State, and it's not because I have hate for them, but they're just not going to do that good at all. Same with Northwestern. UCLA, they had a kind of a Cinderella story a little bit last year, but then they declined. They're probably going to have a little bit of that again, but not going to survive. Maryland, and I have a ton of hope for. A lot of people have doubt in Illinois. I think I have some doubt in them, but I don't think they're going to do too horrible. Same with Nebraska. Many people believe Nebraska is a really great team. They do have a really great football program, but they're not going to do the greatest this year. Here's the upper half. They're going to be tied with Washington. I gave the upper hand to Washington. I think Wisconsin is going to have a pretty phenomenal year. I have a ton of hope in the Badgers this year. A semi-easy schedule for them, which should help them out to get this pretty positive record. And this proves I didn't rig it. I put Michigan in rank 7 in the Big Ten. They're going to go 9-3 and 6-3. They have a pretty rough schedule, and this is going to doom them a little bit. USC, I think they're going to go 9-3 as well. Iowa, maybe I was a little bit too easy on them, going 10-2. I think that was maybe a little bit too much, but maybe not. But this is one of the conferences I am not very positive on, and especially seeing 3 teams going 11-1 with an 8-1 record, that almost seems impossible. Penn State, they're going to have a bounce back here. Indiana, they're going to stay consistent. In Oregon, I think will be the number 1 team in this conference. Ohio State going 10-2. I'm pretty sure they're going against Notre Dame, if I remember right. That's where their second loss goes from. So, I mean, I'm not very confident with the top half of the Big Ten, but I think it's going to be these teams. Maybe you could throw in Nebraska instead of Washington or Wisconsin if you wanted to, but this is how I did it. Now it's time for the Big 12. They have 16 teams. One the lower ends of the Power Conference. And here's the bottom half. UCF, Central Florida. I don't have a ton of hope for them. Iowa State, they're expected to have a major downgrade year. And I'm one that believes that. Kansas, you always got to have doubt for them. I really like the Jayhawks, but this team for football is not that great. Cincinnati, they've never been that great since they entered the Power Conference. Baylor, they're not going to have the greatest year. Same with West Virginia, Kansas State. And honestly, same with Colorado. I don't think they're going to do that great either. Down here for the upper half, I see a ton of hope for Oklahoma State. They took most of North Texas roster from last year, and they're all over here in Oklahoma State. Now, all of them guys are going to have to face power teams and not in the G schools. So, a lot of people think they're going to do extremely well. I think Oklahoma State is going to have a major bounce back year from last year, but they're not going to be that dominant. I have a ton of hope for TCU. They should do really good in Arizona State. I know I'm pretty sure some people have doubt for them 2 teams, but I think they're going to do pretty good. Houston, I love seeing them ranked over here early. I think they're going to finish our ranks. Same with Utah. BYU and Texas Tech. I think Texas Tech probably should have had a loss or 2. I think BYU should have almost been rank 1 in this conference. But overall, not too bad in my opinion. Now it's time for towards the beginning of the lower conferences besides the American. Now it's time for Conference USA. And I managed to fit all of them under one slide. Same Houston once again. Another bad year for them. FIU, I don't think it would be that great. New Mexico State, they shouldn't. Liberty and Middle Tennessee, them 5 teams are just not going to do great this year. Most State, I think they're going to do pretty good. The Bears doing pretty well. Kennesaw State, they won the conference finals last year. I don't think it'll be the same case this year. Same with Jack State. I think they were in the conference finals again last year and they lost against Kennesaw State. Jack State, they're still going to be dominant. They're always one of the top teams in CUSA, but they're not going to be there this year. Delaware, I have a ton of hope for. Have them going 8-4 and 7-1 in the conference record. And finally, Western Kentucky, I think they should be top in the Conference USA and even possibility and talks for the college football playoffs, but none of these teams are very great overall compared to the other G6 schools. Time for the next school, being the MAC Conference or the Mid-American Conference. As everybody knows, they have 13 teams, which in my opinion they should add one more team into here, but let's go into this. And UMass, once again, they're not going to go with 0 wins this year. They have 2 FCS opponents that they should be able to beat, but they are not going to win a single conference record, even though there's a chance it could. I don't know much about the MAC Conference besides the 3 Michigan teams in like Toledo and Ohio. Never about it. I know quite a bit about Bowling Green a little bit. I think they're going to go 3-9. Sacramento State, I don't watch much of the FCS schools, so I can't really say anything about Sacramento State. I just know they didn't do that great last year in the FCS, so I'm kind of surprised they worked their way up to the FBS. I don't think they're going to do that great. Kent State, they shouldn't do that great. Akron, 5-7 could be a little bit too harsh on them. I don't know. Well, a little bit too easy, I guess, on them. They probably should have been a little bit lower. Buffalo, I always thought they were a pretty successful team, but this year, I don't see much about them. Eastern Michigan, they're always probably one of the worst of the Michigan schools. They're going to go 5-7 with a 4-4 record. And up to the upper half, Ball State going 6-6 with a 4-4 record. Kind of similar situation as Tulsa. They upgraded a little bit, and they should do a little bit more better. Central Michigan, I originally had them 8-4, but I think I gave them another loss, I think, to a Toledo or even Western Michigan. After I wished them to it was, but I think 7-5. I'm pretty sure that's their same record as last year, but I think they lost a bowl game. So that seems about right for CMU. Western Michigan, they're going to 8-4. They are not going to win the conference finals this year. They're not going to make it to the conference finals at all. They won it last year. I don't see it this year because these 3 Ohio teams are just top. Ohio and Toledo and Miami, Ohio. Maybe you could throw in Western Michigan ahead of Ohio if you wanted to, but this seems alright. Toledo and Miami, Ohio, they are the 2 best MAC schools coming in this year, and honestly, both of them could have a shot to make it to the playoffs, especially Miami, Ohio. But Toledo, can't count them out either. Both of them have an undefeated conference record since they don't go up against each other. This should be pretty fair, in my opinion. Next, it's time for the Mountain West Conference. They downgrade to 10 teams. A lot of them went to the Pac-12, which will be next. But here we go. UTEP from Conference USA over to the Mountain West. They're not going to be any better over here. The teams, they probably have a little bit more rougher opponents than what they did over in CUSA. And they're going to go 1-11, 0-8. Wyoming, I don't have a ton of hope for them. They're going to go 2-10. Same with NIU, Northern Illinois. They're from the MAC Conference, so now they went over to the Mountain West, and they're not going to do that great here. Nevada going 5-7. I don't have a ton of hope for them. And Air Force, a lot of people have a hope for them, but I don't have that much, in my opinion. San Jose State going 7-6. I thought that would have been a little bit too easy on them, but they're one of the very few teams that have 13 games. I think they are the only one that got that extra game because they go against Hawaii at home. Well, away at Hawaii's home. So that's why they got that extra game. North Dakota State, everybody has a ton of hope for them. Everybody thinks that they could be title contenders right away. They still need at least another year to do better. This conference is kind of loaded towards the end. Hawaii I have a ton of hope for as well. They're going to have a 6-2 conference record with an 8-4 overall record. You could flip North Dakota State and Hawaii around, but I think this seems about right. New Mexico, I have a ton of hope for them, going 10-2 and 7-1 record. And then finally, UNLV, they have a really hot shot to make it to the playoffs. They're going to go 8-0 in conference record and 11-1 for their overall. That's not for the Pac-12, or as you could say, the Pac-8. Since we have 8 teams, and I'm pretty sure they're all from the Mountain West, plus the remaining 2 of the original Pac-12, Oregon State and Washington State. I don't have a ton of hope for them too. Utah State and Colorado State, I don't either. Texas State, quite a bit of hope for them, but in my opinion, not that great. San Diego State, they're going to 7-4 in my opinion, with a 5-2 conference record. Then it's time for the big dogs, Fresno State and Boise State. Both of the 2 are just amazing. I don't know how they only have 11 games this year. The Pac-12 only has 11. I kind of find that a little bit surprising. They should have all had like 2 FCS opponents maybe. That's what I think it should have been, but I guess it's fine. Which this kind of lowers their chances to make it to the playoffs. I really hope that they can expand to like 10 teams maybe by next year. Maybe pick up some more Mountain West teams, or have fun and just expand to the East if they wanted to. Maybe pick up UConn from the independents. I mean, in my opinion, they should expand to 10 teams, or even go up to 12 teams, and that would be fun. Bring back the Pac-12 period. I wish you'll go back to a power conference, but that ain't going to happen. You know, quite a bit of these teams could possibly be power conference teams, I guess. Like Boise State, they've been on top for the past like 3 years. Couldn't make it to the playoffs 2 years ago when they first introduced the 12-team playoffs. Boise State, they could actually survive in the power conference, in my opinion. I think they could survive in the Big 12. Fresno State is probably close to being there as well. But now it's time for the Southeastern Conference, or the SEC. They also have 16 teams. Here's a list. There's a lot of hope coming in from Auburn. I don't have that much from them. A lot of people think Missouri should be towards the top. I don't think so. I think they're going to have a 6-6 record. LSU, they have a ton of hope as well. I don't have too much hope for them. I think 7-5 seems about right. South Carolina, Mississippi State, Kentucky, Arkansas, them 4 teams make sense. Vanderbilt's going to have a downgraded year. These teams in the SEC are not too great. Now up to the upper half, Florida. I mean, I have a ton of hope for the Gators. I think 8-4 actually seems about right, because a lot of top teams are in this conference. Tennessee, they're going to have the same record. Texas A&M, they're going to drop quite a bit, down to 9-3. Possible playoff contenders. Alabama, I think this is the same record as they had last year. Oklahoma, they should have a pretty good upgraded year. They should be towards the top. Ole Miss, some might say that I think I gave Ole Miss a little bit too much credit, but I think this seems about right for the Rebels. Georgia and Texas, these are the 2 top teams in the SEC, and probably 2 of the best power conferences teams, period. They're both going to have a really great record. Now it's time for the final conference, meaning the Sun Belt Conference. And that's what there's by division. Since this is the only conference to have divisions left, the Big Ten had it before, ACC had it. The MAC had it. Every other conference had it, I think, besides the American, the Big 12. So here's how it looks. I think James Madison's going to be the top in this division. Coastal Carolina should do pretty well as well. Georgia Southern, they shouldn't do too horrible, but Coastal Carolina, James Madison, these are the 2 top teams in this division. They should definitely dominate. Now for the other half, it's almost the same thing, but Arkansas State is a little bit better than the lower 4, being UL Monroe, Southern Mississippi, LA Tech, which came from CUSA, and South Alabama. Them 4 teams are going to do that well. Arkansas State, I have some hope for them. The Raging Cajuns, they should do really well, but ultimately Troy is probably the better in this division. But now it's time for the conference finals. So here's all the teams I believe will make it to the conference finals. South Florida and Navy for the American. SMU and Miami, Florida for the ACC. Indiana and Oregon for the Big Ten. BYU, Texas Tech for the Big 12. Delaware and Western Kentucky for CUSA. Miami, Ohio, and Toledo for the MAC. UNLV and New Mexico for the Mountain West. Boise State, Fresno State for the Pac-12. Texas and Georgia for the SEC. And finally, James Madison and Troy for the Sun Belt with the East and West, because I think they go by divisions. Top in each division makes it to the conference finals. So here's a look at that. And finally, here are the winners. I think Navy has it. SMU, Oregon, BYU, Western Kentucky. I think them five makes sense. BYU, they beat Texas Tech, even though they were the lower team. Oregon, I think they've just been the top. Miami, Ohio, I think everybody expected them to win. UNLV, they should take care of business in the Mountain West. Boise State, they should be able to beat Fresno State, even though they're a rivalry. It should be kind of a close game, but I think Boise State, they take it. Texas for the SEC, they should get that one. And finally, James Madison, they should go back-to-back. And even possible playoff contender for this. One of these conference finals winners should make it to the playoffs. My eye is actually on Navy, possibly in UNLV, maybe Boise State. I don't see James Madison or Miami, Ohio, or especially now Western Kentucky making it to the playoffs. But my mind's on Navy or UNLV or even possibly Boise State. Well, this is the last slide. If you enjoyed this, make sure to click the like button and subscribe. And got any more full video ideas you want me to do, please leave it down in the comments. And please let me know if you agree with my predictions for all 138 FBS teams. And I'll see all you in the next video.